Hello, and welcome to a new series that we're going to be doing called the All-in-One Slayer Guide. For players that haven't experienced them or are trying some out on a new profile, it might be scary to start as you don't really know what the best gear is or what Slayer bosses are going to look like or what's the best for you. Some gear is just way too unnecessarily strong and way out of the budget. And some gear might look super powerful but end up being a waste of money. Today our goal is to go over every part of the Revenant Slayer, what gear you'll need, what skill level, as well as the best way to defeat the boss and show what rewards you'll get for maxing the Slayer. We hope to eventually get around to doing every Slayer, and if that's something you'd be interested in, let us know. Before going into this video, I do want to quickly ask you guys to subscribe. We are trying to hit the YouTube rank by this summer, and any support helps more than you can imagine. For ease, if you're trying to skip to a part that you might be struggling on, like a T4 or a T5, the timestamps will be in the description. You can just skip directly to that part of the video. Without wasting any more of your time, let's get into it. Now, just to make sure that this guide is all-inclusive, if you're watching this, you might not even know where Maddox is. So what you're going to want to do is come to the hub, turn around, and then come through past this fountain right here. And then you'll see a bar. If you go into the bar, there's stairs in the back, come down to the left, and here's Maddox. He is the Slayer Master, and he will give you and assign you your quest. I also do want to quickly show off the abilities that the Revenant will use against you during your fights. Tier 1, of course, which is the easiest with only 500 HP, and it has the ability to life drain, which just drains your health for 15 hearts per second, which you should be able to pretty much naturally out heal if you played more than like 5 seconds. Tiers 2, 3, and 4 do get a little bit more difficult though, because they introduce the Pestilence and the Enrage ability, and they also have a lot more health. As you can see, the Tier 4 has 1.5 million health compared to the 500 that the Tier 1 has. Now, the Pestilence ability is going to just deal AoE damage every second, and it's going to shred your armor by 25%. Now, what it means by shredding armor is that it's going to remove 25% of your defense, meaning that the boss is going to hit you for more damage than it normally would. Now, Tiers 3 and 4 also have the ability to Enrage, which isn't that bad because it only takes place a minute after spawning the boss, so hopefully you should be able to kill it before then. And we'll show you what it looks like later on, but basically, it just gets mad, it does more damage, and it can run faster. Finally, we have the Tier 5, which has 3 completely different abilities. The first thing you should notice is that it has 10 million HP compared to the 1.5 million that the Tier 4 has. Redemption is pretty self-explanatory. It just heals rapidly. It has very high health regeneration per second, so you have to do enough damage to outpace that. Explosive Assault is also pretty self-explanatory. It'll just throw explosive TNT around. Finally, there is the Thermonuclear ability, which is after 30 seconds of the boss being spawned and you not killing him, he will start to charge up, release bedrock, and then eventually he'll explode, dealing an insane amount of true damage. And this will pretty much kill you no matter what gear you have. And since we are trying to explain everything here, we are going to go through all of these menu options here, just to explain what's going on. So to start out, we have the boss drop menu, and this will show you what you can possibly drop from the bosses that you're killing. So most of these items are pretty useless, but I'll quickly explain the ones that you should be a little bit excited to get. Starting out with the Foul Flesh. Now, this doesn't seem very useful, and it's just minion fuel that people will use occasionally. But what's important about it is that it has an NPC sell value of 25,000 coins, so you will be making a lot of your money back from this. As you can see, a Tier 4 has a chance to drop 3 of them, and the cost to start a Tier 4 is 50,000 coins. So you will make a guaranteed 75,000 coins if you drop this, which you do drop them pretty often. The Undead Catalyst, the Revenant Catalyst, and the Shard of the Shredded are all used specifically to upgrade Revenant gear. They aren't really used elsewhere. So the only one that's actually worth anything is the Shard of the Shredded. These are worth, you can see, 8,000 coins. But for the most part, unless you get a Shard of the Shredded, you can probably just throw these out. Obviously, there's the Pestilence rune here, which is, I mean, it's a rune. It's worth 1,800 coins. If you have a rune sack, maybe you can stack up a few, but you're probably never going to use it. These can get sold too. Smite 6, you see this is worth 1,200 coins. This is a very common drop. I'd recommend just getting rid of these as well. The Beheaded Horror, if you're struggling for money, you can sell this on the auction house. It's 50,000 coins. Some people will buy it. It's considered an RNG drop, but you will probably be disappointed if you see this. Then there's the Snake Rune, which is also an RNG drop. It's worth 300,000 coins. These might be worth selling, honestly, at any stage of the game. But after that, we have the Revenant Viscera, which is the upgraded form of the Revenant Flesh. These are very nice. They're worth a lot, and they're used for pretty much all of the Revenant recipes. Then there's the Scythe Blade, which can be used to craft the Reaper Orb, which is a legendary talisman, and the Reaper Scythe, which is a museum item. It's not very useful. But these are nice. They're an RNG drop. They're worth 10 million coins, you know. And then there's the Smite 7, which is, you know, a little bit better than Smite 6. It's an RNG drop this time, and it's worth 13 million coins. Finally, we have the Warden Heart, which is what you're going to be hunting. This will only drop from level 5 Revenants, and it is worth 236 million coins at the moment. It is used to craft the Warden Helmet, which is the best out of dungeons helmet in the game. As you can see, I have 2 of them because I think they're awesome. But the Warden Heart is the main component for crafting this thing. So this is the drop that you're going to be hunting while you try to max out this Slayer. So for all 9 levels, you're just going to get a pretty large amount of Skyblock XP. As you can see at level 9, you get a level and a half just from completing it. And each one just increases slightly. So level 1, you get the ability to craft the Wand of Healing. Level 2, you get the Zombie Ring and the Revenant Viscera recipes. Level 3, you can get the Undead Catalyst drop, as well as Revenant Falchion recipe, the Wand of Mending recipe, and the Crystallized Heart recipe. Level 4, you can unlock the Revenant Leggings and the Revenant Boots, as well as the Travel Scroll to the Hub Crypt, so you can do /warp crypts and get there faster. At level 5, it'll give you a level 1 Revenant minion, as well as a Devour Ring, a Revenant Chestplate and Voodoo Doll recipe, and the Small Slayer Slag. Level 6, you will get the Wand of Restoration, the Revived Heart, and the Reaper Falchion recipe. And at level 7, you will get the Zombie Artifact, the Reaper Mask, the Reaper Scythe, the Wand of Atonement, and the entire Reaper set, which we will talk about later. At Zombie Slayer 8, you get 50 health regen as just a base stat, as well as the Reaper Orb, which is the talisman we talked about earlier, Axe of the Shredded, which is the main Revenant weapon, as well as the Warden Helmet recipe, and the ability to buy the Zombie Brain mix-in from the bartender up here. And if you want to see what that does, you can mix it with your God Pots, and it will give you 10 ferocity. And at level 9, you do get the Reaper Gem, which is a pet item that I don't think anybody has ever used in the history of Skyblock, as well as the Tier 12 Revenant minion from the bartender. And that's all the rewards. There is no more levels after level 9. This is for 1,000,000 XP. Okay, so now let's move into the actual boss fight. I will start this by saying that you probably shouldn't be doing any Slayers in this game until you have the gear to kill a Tier 4. There's not really much point to grind anything below that, so the first 3 tiers are kind of just going to be there until you unlock Tier 4. We are going to group the first 4 tiers together as they're pretty simple. As a general idea, for your first few bosses, you won't need anything too special. Looking at the recipes of the Revenant Horror, there's only a few things that you should aim for, being the Wand of Healing and the Zombie Ring. As we showed before, the Healing Wand has many variants unlocked at certain Revenant levels, so when you get that upgrade unlock, you should always aim to get it ASAP. Like, for example, this is the max tier, this is the Wand of Atonement, which I believe you get a Revenant 6 or 7. We are going to skip over the Crystallized Heart and the Revenant Armor, as they aren't very useful, and it's honestly better to just use, it's better to use whatever armor you're currently using. There's no point in investing in Revenant armor. Skill levels, I'd say you probably want to have your foraging and your combat around level 20 to 30. As you can see, if you get foraging 30 here, 25. As you can see, from foraging 25, you'll get an extra 50 strength. On top of combat 25, you will get 100% extra damage, as well as 12.5 crit chance. You can probably get away with doing it at a lower level, but I just wouldn't recommend it. Revenants are also really good for leveling combat, so assuming you go for level 9, this will increase your levels immensely for future content. So in order of best to worst, you are going to want to get either a Reaper Falchion, a Shadow Fury, or a Revenant Falchion. I wouldn't really recommend using a Shadow Fury, but a lot of people do have this, so it is nice to use if you don't want to invest in a Reaper Falchion. But honestly, I would just get a Reaper Falchion. It's 3 million coins, the Shadow Fury is 50 million coins. Just use the Reaper Falchion. But as you can see, they're each clean, and damage test, I do 80k, 81k, 81, do right around 80k with the Revenant Falchion. With the Shadow Fury, I'm gonna do 130, 130, 120, 120, 130. So right around the 130 area, and with the Reaper Falchion, we'll hit for 140, 140, 130, 130. So right around the 140 area. Now obviously your damage is going to be a lot lower because I'm doing this with my stats, which are pretty much maxed. But it will be the same discrepancies, just at a smaller number. Now for spawning the boss, there are many options. You are going to want to kill these Crypt Ghouls as fast as possible. The best choice that I would say to use is the Glacial Scythe. So whenever you shoot this Glacial Scythe, it'll shoot out these little ice beams, and they have an AoE range, and they shoot pretty fast, and they're super cheap on mana. The only downside about this is that it is pretty expensive. It's about 40 million coins. But if you have one lying around or you're using it for other stuff, this is a very good weapon to spawn your bosses with. Now this can also be replicated with the Frozen Scythe, which is the cheaper version of the Glacial Scythe, but this doesn't have the AoE effect that the Glacial Scythe has, so it's going to be a little bit harder to get your kills with. You can also use a short bow like a Juju or a Spirit Bow, but these aren't going to be as good of an option because you can't put Champion on them. Champion is an enchant which you can put on here, which will spawn your bosses 10% faster. I don't have it because I did this before this item even existed. But if you level up your Champion, you will be spawning bosses 10% faster, which it only goes on swords, so you can't put it on both. Now obviously, you might not have any of these things, so just kill with the fastest thing you have. If you have anything ranged that can kill, but it's still not a bad thing to just be spawning with melee. Just running around hitting them like this. So now for the fun part, we're going to talk about the Tier 5 Revenants. These give the best drops, but they are also the most dangerous. This boss is nothing compared to the Tier 4, and there's a chance that if you were using something like Shadow Assassin prior, it won't hold up for the Slayer. Now obviously, if you have the right stats, or if you know what you're doing, Shadow Assassin can work, but we're going to recommend that you have at least Necron or Crimson Armor with some good stats on it. I will 100% recommend that you have at least Combat 45 to 50. You're gonna want pretty high stats to this. I wouldn't go straight from Tier 4s to Tier 5s. You're gonna want to get up to around level 7 Revenant. from tier 4s and then probably take a break and go do other stuff in the game. So by that time, you should be around 45, 50, 60. Ideally, you're 60, but obviously probably not. Just get a pretty high combat level. Same with your foraging. Your foraging should be up there. Get that at least to 40, I would say. Also, our weapon is going to need to change. A Reaper Falchion isn't going to cut it anymore. We are gonna want to upgrade that into an Axe of the Shredded. Now, an Axe of the Shredded does cost 90 million coins, but as you can see, the damage difference is kind of insane. This hits for 400k, this hits for 138k, and the Axe of the Shredded also has an ability where you can throw axes which increase in damage gradually, like this. As you can see, whenever it maxes out, it hits for 600,000 damage just for right-clicking like this. 700,000, 600,000. You can also 5-star this item, which will make it 10% better outside of dungeons, so make sure to do that. It costs a little bit of undead essence, and it is very worth it. Now for your armor, you're going to want to use Reaper armor. If you do have better Crimson armor, you need to have pretty high level Crimson armor and high stats to use Crimson for this boss, but you can use the Reaper armor here, which is intended for Revenants, and as you can see, it has 3 abilities. One is the ability to enrage for 6 seconds, gaining 100 speed, 100 damage, and 100 strength. So without it, I hit for 135, 140, 146, but whenever I enrage like this, I do 234. So I do a lot more damage whenever I enrage. So this is a very good ability. You should use this whenever you spawn the boss to get as much damage out as possible. It also comes with the Trolling the Reaper, which increases your healing from healing wands. You gain some defense against zombies. And you also deal 100% damage to zombies, but you will deal 1% damage to other mobs, so this doesn't work on anything except Revenant. And then the final perk is that you can kill zombies while wearing it to increase zombie defense. So as you can see, at every kill milestone, it will increase by a large amount, but just from getting 50 kills on it, I got 60 extra defense against zombies. Now there are some options for this head slot. You can either use a Tarantula helmet, a Crimson helmet, or a Warden helmet. I would recommend the Crimson helmet the most, or I would recommend the Crimson helmet if you aren't able to afford a Warden helmet, as those are pretty expensive. The Crimson helmet will allow you to do swipes, which increases your damage. So just to show you what the boss will look like, this is a very punishing boss. So it will throw these TNTs outside of its head and make these blocks appear on the ground. Now these blocks you do not want to stand in whenever the TNT hits the ground. As you can see, my health is staying right about normal, but if I stand in the TNT whenever it lands, I take a pretty large amount of damage. And this will hurt you a lot more. Might even one-tap you. I just have a lot of defense. Now the boss will run around throwing TNT at you, hitting you back. As you can see, it also heals pretty fast. And then this is the thermonuclear reaction. It spreads out bedrock and then it explodes just like that, which is after 30 seconds of not killing it. As you can see, it does regen. It's at 9.6 and now it's at 9.7, 9.9, 10 mil. So you will want to do a lot of damage to outpace that. And then basically, you just want to damage it. And then whenever you get to the 3 mil damage, it will enrage and it'll get faster and do a lot more damage. And there we go. I just killed it with a Venomous. But that's basically what the boss is going to look like. It is pretty straightforward. It just does a lot of damage and you want some good gear to do it. Now sadly, this Slayer is pretty self-explanatory and just easy to get out of the way for the first video in this series. The next videos will be much more in-depth. That's where we are going to stop this guide, and that's really it. Bye.